Hey, it's Rob. Welcome once again to Wax Wednesday stuff I picked up. A little stream that I do, a little program. If you're enjoying it, please subscribe or hit me a like. Shoot me a comment if you are a collector of vinyl or you just buy the odd piece and you just want to say hi. By all means, do so. Safe space, friendly, no judgment. Please don't judge me on some of the stuff I buy, that's for sure. This is stuff that I've picked up in the past week or so. And some pretty impressive stuff. And one new method that I'm able to introduce to the stream here on how you might be able to pick up some great deals yourself on vinyl. We'll get to that here in just a bit. First up, man, as I have been doing for the last little while, I'm picking up records that I don't know, have some sort of history with me. This one certainly does. This is Kiss Destroyer Resurrected. In 2012, it was the 35th anniversary of the classic Kiss album, Destroyer. You know, arguably their best studio album. I think it is. Some pretty good songs on here. Detroit Rock City still holds up pretty good as far as the Kiss song goes. Shout It Out Loud is an anthem, a banger. The hit was Beth, of course. If you were around that time and wanting to hear some Kiss on the radio, you got Beth. So I guess it was that. But, but there's some stuff on here that really hasn't aged that well. Like Flaming Youth, that's pretty corny. King of the Nighttime World is co-written by Kim Fowley. Google him. He's gross. Great Expectations is on here. That's... I don't know, that's an uncomfortable listen in a grooming sense, and I'm not talking hygiene. Anyway, Kiss's reworking of this, or Bob Ezrin's reworking. He was the original producer of the Destroyer album, and for this project, they gave him, the analog tapes to rework. They gave him digitally, of course, but he kind of remixed it. And yes, honestly, I can't remember. It's been so long since I've heard the original Destroyer that I can't really remember all the idiosyncrasies of how it sounds. I think overall, giving this a listen, it sounds brighter, fresher. Perhaps the drums are a little louder. Perhaps the guitars are a little crunchier. But overall, the songs still kind of have the same sort of balance. This is also interesting to note. This was the original artwork for Kiss Destroyer, but this is their wardrobe for the Kiss Alive tour. And they said, well, we've updated our look. We've got new stage gear. We've got new costumes. So the Destroyer album cover that we know has the stuff that they were wearing on stage, at this point in their career. And, of course, the artwork has changed a little bit. Less flames in the one that was chosen, and a little more rubble that they are standing on top of. The album artist, I forget his name, but he also did the Love Gun album for these guys. So anyway, Kiss Resurrected, it's pretty good. It's okay. It's all right. But if you're going to get a Kiss album, I think this is the one to grab. So, and it's nice to hear this stuff again. Throw it on every now and then. When I'm feeling a little nostalgic, we'll go with this one. One of the first records I got when I started collecting records was Kiss Destroyer. My equivalent to the Beatles on Ed Sullivan would be seeing Kiss on the Paul Lynde Halloween special in October of 1976 when they performed live. I believe Detroit Rock City and Beth were the two songs that they did on that. But my mind was blown because I was just starting to get into music at that point, and I was into comics. So, Kiss is a natural marriage of those two worlds. And as a 10-year-old, I was hooked. By the next week, I had a copy of Destroyer, and every scribbler I owned had the different faces of Kiss marked all over them. So, this one takes me back a little bit. So I'm glad I have it. Next up, and this is probably my wow pickup of the weekend. Check this out. It's an MC5 High Time 1971 Canadian pressing. An original. It's got the Atlantic, the red label. which is dates it as late 60s or early 70s. So very cool. This is the third album and the final album by the MC5. The clock had pretty much run out of them, no pun intended, at this point. The first album was Kick Out the Jams, which is a classic album. Kind of a lot of people consider it kind of proto-punk or, one of those pioneering punk bands. It had a lot of energy. It had a lot of great excitement surrounding it because it's the rarest of rare cases when a debut album is a live album. The debut album for the MC5 was a live album recorded in their hometown. And the crowd's into it, the band's into it, and it's a very exciting moment in time. But it is a live album, and it's kind of, warts and all. There are some exciting moments, but overall I don't think it's a great sounding album. And I can say the same for their follow-up album, the second album, which was back in the USA, very thin production. And you remember early on for the MC5, they were wrapped up in a lot of politics. Their manager was a guy named John Sinclair. He was somewhat of an activist in the Detroit area. He's the guy that was famously jailed for selling 2 joints to an undercover cop, and ending up with a 10-year prison sentence. It was John Lennon who performed at a protest a couple of years into the sentence, like he did some time for this, but that eventually got the movement kick-started to have John Sinclair released. But by the time he came out of jail, a lot of the steam had come out of the MC5. So yeah, this is their final album. It's an incredible shape. What I like about this album is, it doesn't have that, political baggage that was attached to the first album. They're really good here. Like, the band is probably the best they've ever been. The songs, there's a little more muscle to them. They're jamming out. The song lengths are a little longer. They're flexing some creative muscle. Fred Sonic Smith has a couple of great songs here, Sister Ann and Skunk, which kind of bookends the start and finish of this album. It's also the album that has Wayne Kramer's Poison, which is another classic moment for this band. This is an incredible shape. The gatefold, the seams are all intact, showing very little ring wear, a touch here on the front and a little scuff in the corner. But other than that, this is a great copy of this album, so I was super happy to get that. So MC5, High Time on Atlantic Records. They were dropped by their original record label, Elektra, for some pretty funny reasons. But anyway, that's another story. What I do want to get into right now is those 2 purchases were from Backstreet, and I frequent Backstreet a lot, and I like going there, and I like going to the Cap. I like going to any record store. I have a good time there. But this is an option. This is an option for you. It's a Facebook group called Maritime Vinyl Auctions, and there's a few auction sites out there for vinyl. That's the one I go to most often. It's a pretty good community. The auctions that go up, usually it's like, anywhere between 50 to 100 albums in a post, and you just flick down and if one catches your eye, you can put a bid in the comment section. And if you want to keep a close eye on it, you tag your name beside your bid so you can see who's topping your bid. Anyway, it's a little fun way to do it, and you can get some great deals this way. The pros and cons. Well, the pros, it's a great community. The selections are generally pretty diverse, and they're coming from record collectors, so you can kind of trust their grading to a great degree. It's kind of fun doing the auction part of it, making the bids, kind of watching how your post or the one you're bidding on is doing. It just adds another level to the whole experience. The cons, it's a mailing kind of thing, because usually this is based out of Halifax. So what they do is you pay a couple of bucks extra for shipping, into a shipping box, and when they have enough of them, they make a shipment up to Fredericton here, and it lands at a spot, and everybody goes and picks up their records. It's fantastic. It's a real simple, basic system. But you might wait 4 to 5 weeks for your album to actually arrive, because they have to wait for, enough to go in a shipment to make it worthwhile. Because, it's pretty expensive to ship records. So if the more the merrier is the kind of motto here. But and another con is, and I bring it up on this one in particular. I just picked this one up. It's Neil Young's Zuma, his 1975 release. If I had blown up the thumbnail picture, maybe I would have noticed that there were some little pen marks, kind of some detail squiggled in on the danger bird here, as well as other parts of the cactus here. There's just little pen marks, and that does kind of hurt the overall value of the record, but the vinyl itself is in very good plus condition. Fantastic. This was actually on a fun auction. It was a half price auction. So whatever your bid was, you paid half of what your winning bid was. So I got this for $10.50, and it's well worth it. It's an early, I don't know if it's an original, but it's a very early Canadian pressing. It probably is an original, judging from, the identifiers like the label and just looking at the coloring on the jacket itself. Zuma's a pretty good album, actually. It's early on in the 70s when Neil put out Harvest, he was kind of feeling his career was kind of going in a middle-of-the-road direction. So he went off the road for a period of time. He called that, after the fact, his Ditch Trilogy, which started with Time Fades Away, which is a live album of new songs at the time, played in front of an audience that was confused because they weren't hearing any hits. It was kind of a lukewarm response at best. The band wasn't happy. Neil Young thinks it's one of his worst releases ever. So that's the first one, followed by On the Beach, which I actually think is pretty good. And then Tonight's the Night, which is an album that is, it's very sad, it's very angry, it's very regretful. It's got a lot of emotions underneath it, because Neil at that point was dealing with the loss of Crazy Horse member Danny Whitten, who had passed away from an overdose after being kicked off the tour because his excesses were becoming detrimental to the band, not in a good way. So anyway, there's a lot of guilt there wrapped up. Neil lost one of his friends, so it took a little while to process that and get through it. Zuma is kind of his first step back onto the road. But it's still a Crazy Horse record. Crazy Horse are just a raucous band, and they let loose on some great tracks here. I'm particularly fond of Barstool Blues. That's one of my favorite Neil Young and Crazy Horse songs. The epic Cortez the Killer is on here. I like Don't Cry No Tears. Pardon My Heart. It's more of a sentimental side of Neil, but he was going through a breakup of a marriage at this point, so there's that. So there's a lot of levels to Zuma as well. He's out of his ditch period, but it's still a very honest and emotional record at the same point, and well worth the $10.50 I paid for it. I'm sure I'll find a nice copy of the cover somewhere for next to nothing, and I'll marry those two together, and I'll have a great copy of Zuma again. So anyway, that's what I picked up. Maritime Vinyl Auctions. Have a look on Facebook. They're really good, and I think you'll enjoy that. Otherwise, hit a record store, buy a record, and bring it home and throw it on, and it just feels good. Does to me anyway. Till next time, we'll talk to you next week. That's Wax Wednesday. I'm Rob, and enjoy the stuff that you pick up. We'll see you in 7.